The man had a gun pointed at my wife's face, hands trembling, eyes bulging with the kind of self-importance that comes from a life of unchecked authority and too many YouTube tutorials. We were in our front yard. All this because my wife jogged past the HOA clubhouse without visible ID. What he didn't know, and what I would have paid to see register on his face, was that the woman he just threatened with a knockoff Glock had returned from a classified Delta Force mission 2 days ago. She hadn't even unpacked her field gear yet. Now here she was, standing in front of a wannabe security captain holding his weapon sideways like he learned tactics from action movies and energy drinks. I knew she could have disarmed him with a pine cone and a zip tie. But instead, she gave him a chance to surrender. He didn't take it. That's when things got real. We moved into this neighborhood for its promise of calm. A secure, family-oriented enclave just outside the city, that's how the brochures sold it. Words like sanctuary, community spirit, optional monthly events. Nothing in the fine print warned us about militarized golf carts or Home Safety Division foot patrols who treated sidewalks like a Call of Duty map. Honestly, we should have known something was off the day we saw the clubhouse, for matte black golf carts lined up like low-budget SWAT vans, complete with HSD decals, zip-tied blue lights, and cup holders. One had a garden gnome in tactical gear glued to the hood. Cute, I thought. Maybe it's for Halloween. Nope. Turns out, they were serious, as in, try to write you a ticket for walking your dog off-leash on your own property, serious. We kept to ourselves that first week. My wife stayed busy organizing the garage and setting up perimeter cameras, not paranoia, just habit. Transitioning, she called it. I stayed inside, deep in code, trying to avoid our HOA president, Karen Brewster. She introduced herself with a laminated badge, 3 clipboards, and a smile. That said, I've never been challenged, and I don't plan to start now. She gave us a welcome packet. It had rules like no drying laundry outside. Grass may not exceed 2.75 inches. And my personal favorite, residents must not appear intimidating during recreational activity. When I asked what that meant, she smiled and said, "You'll know it when you see it." We were in trouble. I could tell. But my wife? She just smiled, nodded, and thanked her like she hadn't just come home from extracting foreign nationals under enemy fire. She's good at that, blending in, staying calm. I've seen her walk into rooms bristling with tension and defuse them with one sentence. Which is why what happened next absolutely floored me. That morning was like any other. She got up, threw on a hoodie, tied her shoes, and went for a jog. "Just a quick loop," she said. I made coffee and sat down at my desk. 10 minutes later, I got a motion alert from our street-facing camera. I figured it was a delivery, until I pulled up the feed and saw 2 HSD golf carts parked across the road. And my wife. Standing completely still, hands slightly raised. In front of her was a man, maybe 50, tactical vest barely holding in his gut, pistol shaking in both hands, barking something I couldn't hear. I dropped my mug. By the time I ran outside, it had escalated. 2 more officers had shown up. They flanked the first guy like backup dancers in a tactical-themed musical, each one looking more confused than the last. But my wife? Calm. Breathing slow. Eyes locked on the weapon. I stepped forward, ready to shout, but then I saw it, the twitch of her right hand. Barely noticeable. But I knew what it meant. She was ready. The guy was still yelling, about ID, about how she looked suspicious, about how she was running in a restricted HOA zone, without a badge. Who the hell jogs with a badge? My wife stayed calm. Asked if he was law enforcement. He said, "We're HOA Police. That's higher than city cops here." That's when she smiled. Just a little. She said, "Sir, I'm going to ask you to lower your weapon, for your own safety." He didn't. What happened next took 2 seconds. First blink, his gun hit the grass. Second blink, he was face down on the pavement, one arm pinned in a lock that probably had a NATO classification. She wasn't even breathing hard. She leaned in and said something. I couldn't hear it, but whatever it was made his eyes go wide, like he'd seen a ghost. Cops arrived 5 minutes later. The HOA officers started ranting about assault and HOA authority. But one of the real officers took one look at my wife, asked for ID, examined something she handed over, then nodded. Ma'am, you're good to go, he said. That was it. They left. No questions. No warnings. Nothing. Karen Brewster arrived 10 minutes later, finding her captain bruised, humiliated, and absolutely silent. The look on her face. I'll cherish that until I die. That moment. It was the beginning. Instead of backing off, Karen declared war. Not just on my wife. On both of us. She had no idea who she was dealing with, someone who trained the very soldiers these people played dress-up trying to imitate. Someone who could disappear into a war zone and come back with intel, hostages, and half a plan to start a chicken coop in the backyard. Karen thought she ran this neighborhood. My wife once took back an entire village. This wasn't even going to be the hardest part of her week. So when the emergency HOA meeting was announced for 7 p.m., people showed up early. By 6:30, it looked like a block party. Lawn chairs, popcorn, coolers, all lined up. The neighborhood had no idea what was coming. But I did. Because I married it. Karen Brewster, self-declared queen of the cul-de-sac, had summoned the entire neighborhood to the community center for an emergency meeting after what she called a violent assault on a decorated HOA officer. The phrase itself became an instant meme in the neighborhood Facebook group, complete with a now viral image of said officer mid-faceplant, affectionately dubbed Captain Clipboard. Karen had been pacing the clubhouse all afternoon like a dictator preparing a national address. She wore a khaki vest plastered with HOA pins and a Bluetooth headset better suited for airport ground control than residential governance. I didn't want to go. My wife practically begged me not to, less out of concern and more because she knew I'd say something sarcastic and end up banned from the snack table. But after one of Karen's wannabe enforcers pulled a gun on my wife for jogging, I couldn't stay home. So I threw on my favorite t-shirt, the one that reads my wife's other ride is a Blackhawk, grabbed a notebook just to unnerve them, and went. My wife stayed behind, tea in hand, watching the live stream some teenager had set up with a GoPro. Honestly, she looked entertained. The meeting started exactly 2 minutes late, basically a riot in HOA time. Karen stepped up to the podium and sighed, the kind of sigh you'd expect before announcing martial law. Behind her, a whiteboard read emergency response strategy with hand-drawn stick figures labeled threat actor and heroic defense. The defense figure had sunglasses and biceps that the real officer never possessed. Karen adjusted her mic 3 times. Neighbors, she intoned, as if campaigning for a position no one applied for. It is with a heavy heart that I report a violent assault on one of our peacekeepers. Yes, peacekeepers. Not volunteers, not part-time hobby guards, peacekeepers. Like this was the United Nations. She gestured to a chair where Captain Frederickson sat in full pity mode, arm in a sling, his face somewhere between humiliation and lactose intolerance. Captain Frederickson, she continued solemnly, was injured in the line of duty protecting our streets from a trespasser with a known history of aggression. My hand went up. Yes, Mr. Owens, she said, all fake sweet. Just curious, what's this known history? Because I live with her, and unless you're talking about her ongoing beef with a rooster, I think you're mistaken. Some laughter. Karen didn't appreciate it. We ask that you refrain from sarcastic commentary. Got it, I said. Only the real kind, then. Like the part where your officer pulled a gun on a jogger. Karen flinched, but rallied. It was a miscommunication. We had reason to believe the individual was casing homes for theft. She was wearing a Fitbit, I said, and listening to a podcast. Karen pounced. Exactly. A crime podcast. That suggests intent. I blinked. The room murmured. Then came the turning point. Unbeknownst to Karen, one of her officers had been wearing a body cam, for authenticity, of course, and it synced wirelessly to a cloud. A local teen hacked the footage and uploaded the whole incident. 5 laptops lit up in the room. We watched it all, my wife jogging, confused as the golf cart skidded to a halt, the shouting, the gun, her calm voice asking him to lower the weapon, and then the disarm. Quick. Clean. Efficient. When the video ended, the silence was louder than any HOA rule ever enforced. Someone at the back muttered, "She should be running the HOA." Karen slammed her clipboard. That footage is unauthorized. It lacks context. What context justifies pointing a gun at a jogger? Someone asked. It was over. Her narrative crumbled. People who once just wanted to avoid fines started asking where their HOA dues were going. Why did they need an armed HOA patrol? Who approved the use of weapons? The answers were inconsistent, vague, and bureaucratic. Karen had lost the room. That night, walking home under the dim street lamps Karen insisted reduce light pollution, I felt something shift. People weren't afraid anymore. They were fed up. Back home, my wife sat on the porch, sipping tea. "How was it?" she asked, not looking up. "Better than cable," I said. "You're famous now." I saw. There's a gif of me disarming him. 2,000 shares. We sat quietly. Crickets chirped louder than the HOA would prefer. Then I said what we were both thinking. "She's not going to back down, is she?" "Nope," my wife replied, draining her tea. "She's going to escalate."